of CBP will be on in just a moment.
Está el rumor de las
Sí. Está viejo el dinero. Pues we from great. Thanks so much.
de varios. No, pues es que no hay. O sea, se ha rumorado mucho bajar, Senador.
Arriba Tampico.
Sí, señor. La Jaiba Brava.
Oye, ¿me puedes mandar la presentación?
Con todo gusto, senador.
Me encantó cómo pusiste los conceptos ahí de lo que se va resolviendo.
Sí, ahí vamos y si quiere conocer las instalaciones, ahí usted dígame, ¿no? Bueno, le hicimos a Aristóteles Núñez, tiene español y de otro lado inglés.
Okay. Hay un montón de esfuerzos por la industria en el asunto ese de electrónico.
Sí.
Que estoy viendo que mostraste aquí, ¿no? A la entrada de la instalación. Y luego pues vas a tener el manifiesto en una computadora.
No, debió llegar al manifiesto mucho antes y el pedimento también. Y el sistema de administración de riesgo es el que determina.
Ahora lo que yo estoy viendo es la transportación, la distancia entre la planta y detectores estos en la frontera.
Esa es una iniciativa que queremos trabajar, que le llamamos corredores logísticos seguros. Con Alan Bersin, ojalá la mencione Alan Bersin al final del día, porque queremos conectar un camión de Montreal a Monterrey.
Y sí, que se vaya hermético.
Se llama electrónicamente idioma, ¿no? Conectar todos los, por ejemplo, con el reconocimiento mutuo de los programas, con la tecnología, ya podemos empezar con algunas empresas voluntarias a hacer esa conexión.
Sí, pues ya se quedan encapsulados electrónicamente.
Sí, los puedes ver dónde están.
I enjoyed your comments very much.
No, thank you, sir.
I worked in our administration and I had a son-in-law that worked for the U.S. Trade Reps office. Also.
My pleasure, sir. This in English and Spanish.
Very good comment.
My pleasure.
Pues ahí te tomo la palabra. Y lo que les pueda servir yo ahí en la comisión, yo estoy totalmente abierto.
Pues, senador, ya sabe, lo vamos a...
¿Sí?
¿En serio,
Sácame
Good afternoon, just after 12, so good afternoon. We're about to get started. The commissioner is here and ready to begin, so please take your seats.
Commissioner, would you like to stand or would you like to sit here?
I think I'll probably stand.
Okay. I'm going to stay here and I'll
Sure.
during your comments and I'll moderate
Good.
the questions.
Well, thank you. And you'll do the, you'll pick out the people who can ask and who won't ask.
And we'll have...
How was Arturo this morning? You know, he is a tremendous
We're
individual.
very lucky to have him on the Mexico Institute.
I saw that, and I thought that was terrific.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. I'm amazed how obedient you all are today. Fantastic. Glad to see that. We're going to move straight along with our program. Delighted to have with us Commissioner Kerlikowske, head of CBP. We are, one of the things that I'd like to point out straight away is that Commissioner Kerlikowske has been a great friend to the Mexico Institute and to the Wilson Center more broadly, has appeared here a number of times. His comments are always insightful and very important in guiding our own work. I know that throughout your career, Commissioner, issues of security have been sort of the central line, but also questions of transparency and accountability, questions which are very, very important, not just in Mexico and the United States, but throughout the world. I know that you've had a long history of working on a bilateral basis with US-Canada and US-Mexico, and I'll be interested in sort of hearing some of your thoughts about that in a little while. But I just wanted to give you full recognition right now for what's going on in the bilateral relationship with Mexico right now, how far we have come in terms of making this a more positive and fruitful, productive relationship. And already this morning we've had comments from a number of speakers, including Congressman Cuellar, about how important the pre-inspection on the Mexican side and on U.S. side is going to be for the future. So without any further ado, I give to you Commissioner Gil Kerlikowske.
Thank you. Well, we just left the Canadians at the White House. That's why we were running a little bit late, and we'll be in Mexico in August. So that's terrific. One thing that I would mention, and Duncan, I only know Duncan by reputation, even though he's been here 2.5 years, and I come in and out of here. It's nice to meet in person now. So thank you. One thing that I would mention, we were in The Hague and Brussels and got back yesterday. And we were very excited, the World Customs Organization. Some of you know this from the many tweets that we have put out and press releases, etc. We ran a candidate for one of the elected directorships. For those not familiar with WCO, it's a 180-member country organization. And the United States ran a candidate for the Director of Compliance, and 89 countries from around the world voted for her, and she will take a 5-year term in Brussels as a Director of Compliance for the World Customs Organization. Ana Hinojosa, our Deputy Assistant Commissioner for International Affairs, has spent many years on the southwest border as a port director. She clearly understands these relationships, and to have her kind of leading this effort for such a large organization and such a global trade organization is tremendously important. My association with Mexico is very strong. Not only was it my first international trip as Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, I was confirmed in March of last year, but also during the time that I served as President Obama's drug policy advisor, working with then the Calderon administration very much on issues involving prevention programs, treatment programs, et cetera. So the relationship and the support and the recognition of the importance of this relationship with Mexico is something that is very much a part of me. The relationships are vital to our dual mission at Customs and Border Protection, which is border security and the facilitation of lawful trade and travel. And we depend very much on information sharing, on a joint investment in infrastructure along the border, and security collaboration. Mexico and the United States are deeply intertwined. We're very deeply connected. Trade, culture, commitment to democratic principles, all of these things are so vital, so important. And this extends to our economic interests. When I was being vetted and going through the process of confirmation with the United States Senate, quite often the questions would be asked, your background over 40 years is in law enforcement, and will you understand and appreciate and recognize the importance of travel and trade facilitation? Or will this be all security all the time, in fact, to the detriment of these economies? And I think that in the year plus that I've had the job, I think I've been able to overcome that very well. I've overcome it very well, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, we have tremendous people within Customs and Border Protection that really recognize and understand and appreciate the importance of travel and trade facilitation. They really recognize how important it is that both our economies do well. The other important aspect of my learning experience has been that these people have long established careers and they're subject matter experts in these areas. People like our Assistant Commissioner Brenda Smith, our Director Maria Luisa Boyce, that many of you know. These people have been tremendously helpful to me to educate me about the importance of these issues. One thing that I hear very much is that from the private sector and the trade sector, they want consistency. They'd like to see the more that we can harmonize our processes and our regulations, the better it would be. the more predictable these things are, the better it is for them when it comes to this huge amount of trade. The most important element of our trade vision is having that one U.S. government approach to our country's imports and exports. And as we look at Customs and Border Protection, which is now going on 12 years old, one face at the border rather than the three faces that had existed before seems to be something that is taking off quite a bit. And as we, whether it was in Brussels talking to member countries or whether it was going to individual bilateral discussions, many countries very much would like to and are engaged in doing very much the same thing. At first, I think that people would believe that customs is only about revenue collection, border enforcement, border security belongs to a variety of other organizations, etc. I think that in our 12 years of existence, not without fits and starts, but in our 12 years of existence, we've been able to see to show that these things are very mutually compatible, that we can actually do both jobs and that we can be helpful in doing it. We enforce laws for almost 50 federal agencies. They touch the trade process in a variety of ways, requiring a variety of forms, a lot of different information, etc. One thing that's been helpful, I think, as we move forward in facilitating trade is that Customs and Border Protection sees themselves to the Food and Drug Administration or the Consumer Product Safety Commission or others. We see ourselves as value added. We can help enforce their laws and their regulations. They have huge responsibilities to keep our pharmaceutical and food programs safe and out of harm's way is very important. The Consumer Product Safety Commission also a huge amount of important work that they do in keeping products that could be hazardous out of the United States. But we have a large footprint. We're 60,000 employees. We have 800 people overseas. We're in 40 different countries. We have a very large footprint, and we want to be helpful to those organizations. We understand their regulations, and we want to make sure that we're doing a good job for them and that we're also doing a good job for the industry. We're automating those trade processes. So when you think about organizations like Fish and Wildlife and others, moving into this automated process is tremendously helpful, tremendously important in many ways. But different pieces of information were collected. They were collected on different forms, everything from paper to fax machines, some places requiring or wanting original signatures, etc. We're moving very rapidly toward this completely automated process. It means it's more efficient, it's less costly, and it's more predictable for importers and exporters because they get an opportunity to take a hard look at where the slowdown might be. Why was something held up? Well, they can look in that same single window, the ACE window, and find out where, and then expedite that process. When it's fully implemented, there'll be one set of harmonized data elements for the entire United States government for both import and export transactions. When we drive toward the President's December 2016 goal for this effort, we're working with international partners who are developing their own single windows. And I here give great credit and admiration to the government of Mexico. They are clearly on the forefront of this. They have deployed a viable, active single window. They've saved the country money, time, and resources. They've saved more than 191 billion pesos, about 12 billion US dollars. They've eliminated paper amounting to the equivalent of 27,000 trees each year. It eliminates the need to send documents from 49 Mexico customs sites to customs headquarters, which represented an expenditure of about 7 million pesos. So CBP's single window teams and Mexican customs have worked closely to harmonize the data. And the single window, when it's fully implemented, we're going to continue then to develop ways to connect our programs internationally, and we can amplify the benefits across the global supply chain. Well, last October I had the honor of signing our mutual recognition arrangement with Chief Aristoteles Nunez Sanchez of Mexico's tax administration. And we think we did that in San Diego. And if you haven't been to San Ysidro lately and you haven't seen the changes in infrastructure there, I would tell you that it shows you that when you make those investments, you can really speed up trade, you can speed up travel, and you can do it in a way that's quite safe. The agreement that we signed formalizes the compatibility between our Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism, our CTPAT, and Mexico's new scheme of certified companies, their NEC programs. And what this means is that whenever possible, customs administrations extend benefits to the partners, members, and others about supply chain security and trusted trader programs. The MRA, that mutual recognition arrangement, has important outcomes. Programs that have already exchanged information. We've participated in a number of trade events together, including the first CBP-hosted AEO workshop, the Authorized Economic Operator, and that was attended by customs officials from 25 countries. So many places around the world look to what Mexico is doing. They look to what the United States is doing, and most importantly, I think they look to how we work together. For example, NEC is conducting 60 validations of some of those companies to see if they've met those vetted standards, and that are both CTPAT and NEC members. And CTPAT is going to recognize the outcome of those validations, and we're conducting validations on behalf of NEC. This will conduct a number of joint validations, and it reduces redundancy. And that's what mutual recognition is all about. More efficiency, less redundancy for our trusted partners. But make no mistake about it, when these companies and these organizations go to all the additional work of having their processes vetted, their supply chain security programs reviewed closely, the vetting or the checking on of their employees in order to meet all those standards, then there is a benefit to security and there's a benefit to that company also. Well, let me talk about the pre-inspection pilots. That's really exciting. It's been going on a while, and this collaboration is really going to provide the benefit in cargo pre-inspection. They're being implemented at 3 locations, and each of these will be lasting in the pilots 180 days. Laredo International Airport, by the way, where customs officials already operate from the government of Mexico, but starting in late August, it will involve pre-inspection of air cargo from automotive, electronics, and the aerospace industries that are destined to 8 Mexican airports. Mesa de Otay, Baja California, and Mexico, just across from Otay Mesa, port of entry in California. That's scheduled for mid-September. And then Foxconn in Chihuahua, near Santa Teresa, New Mexico, is projected for mid-2016. So these are great pilots, and these are going to be very interesting to watch, and we'll all learn from them. We'll all benefit from it. U.S. officials working side by side with Mexican officials to work to potentially to significantly reduce congestion and wait times. I mentioned San Ysidro, and when I was there, when I first took office a little over a year ago, the lines were extremely long. The last time I was there with the new lanes, the new infrastructure, etc., I continued, though. I continued to hear a complaint over and over again, and of course that was from vendors selling water that said traffic is moving too quickly. I can't benefit in selling the water. Border infrastructure, it's important. $1.45 billion a day in two-way trade, nearly 1 million people legally crossing the border between the United States and Mexico each day. That's a healthy infrastructure, and it's a common border. Aging facilities, though, and limited resources at land ports of entry cause long and costly wait times for both people and goods. And through bilateral discussions, including our 21st Century Border Management Initiative, the high-level economic dialogue, the United States and Mexico have really made some headway. Let me give you a couple examples. In 2014, we completed construction on the Nogales-Mariposa port of entry, which now includes 8 primary commercial inspection lanes, and that's up from 4. And that will significantly improve the port's capacity for processing of more than half of the U.S.'s winter produce. CBP and Mexican Customs are in the final stages of fully replacing existing temporary and really an outdated inspection inspection facility in Casita, Texas, and it does not currently, that does not currently process commercial traffic. And the new Tornillo Guadalupe land port of entry creates additional commercial processing in a busy greater El Paso border region. It will also become the largest port by area in the United States and capacity to actually accommodate that growing demand. CBP and Mexican Customs are working to collaborate as project sponsors on Otay Mesa East, a port which will be 2 miles east of the existing port. When you think about that future, you know, when the government of Mexico builds one facility and the government of the United States builds another, how can we work together? Could we operate in one joint facility and work very closely together and save money and reduce time, et cetera? Those are things that are very exciting and very interesting to do. It's highly innovative, this Otay Mesa East port. Toll-based land port provides an alternative crossing option for commercial and non-commercial traffic. And wait times, as we all know, are critically important to our economy. Public-private partnerships, one that we've engaged in very heavily. Reimbursable, we're authorized by Congress to get under Reimbursable Services and Donations Acceptance Authority. And we're grateful, and I think you heard from Senator Cornyn this morning, but we're very grateful for that authority because it really involves the private sector stakeholders investing in us. And we have to be very transparent in showing when they do make those investments how that money is spent, what they got as far as a return on investment for that additional funding. And I think we've done that, and I think these agreements seem to be very popular and they seem to be working. So we can enter into these 5-year partnerships with the private sector and government entities to support additional services. Right now we have 20 reimbursable services agreements at 19 ports of entry, including 2 on the southwest border. The City of El Paso agreement extends to peak vehicle and pedestrian traffic hours, and the South Texas Assets Consortium increases capacity at several crossings, including Hidalgo, Brownsville, and Laredo. So when these organizations and these private sector stakeholders need additional hours or need additional overtime or additional personnel, it can be very helpful when they help to provide the funding for some of that. In addition, Congress also gave us the authority, along with the General Services Administration, to accept donations from the private sector or government entities at our CBP or our GSA-owned properties. And the authority lets us accept certain resources to expand operations at new or existing ports of entry. So we received 7 proposals during the first open period of fiscal year 2015. 6 of the 7 proposals are for ports on the southwest border, and we expect to announce our initial selections by the end of this summer. Well, no single company, no customs service, no law enforcement agency can see the complete picture of every facet of the supply chain. And we know how important it is to secure that supply chain. We know how important it is to move it expeditiously. It's important that we coordinate with our international partners and our trade stakeholders to ensure that that supply chain stays secure and efficient. And we work with Mexico daily on developing new initiatives, especially in light of the high-level economic dialogue that took place at both the North American Leaders Summit in Toluca, Mexico in February 2014, and also the USMexico CEO Dialogue in Monterrey in December. And I couldn't have been more pleased to be in Brussels and have the support and the friendship and the cooperation of Mr. Trevino also. So it was a great opportunity to meet with him. So we couldn't place more importance on our relationship with Mexico. We think that by being more open, more transparent, that we will continue to do a very good job together for not only the security and the protection of people in both countries, but also for the security and the facilitation of people who are involved in lawful trade and lawful travel. So with that, I thank you very much. I apologize for being a little bit late. There's never a traffic problem in Washington, you all know. And I look forward to taking a few questions, which I'm sure you'll facilitate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kerlikowske is very generous with his time. We have time for 2 questions, if we can take them. One hand straight up here, if we can have a microphone. If you could introduce yourself.
Commissioner, hello. thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk with you and ask you questions and share some comments with all these distinguished colleagues. My name is Miguel Aguirre. I'm with the Border Fusion Group. I also own the McDonald's trolley station in San Isidro, right at the pedestrian port of entry. Been there for 30 years. My dad operates a mailbox business inside that. So we deal with a lot of the cross-border dynamic that's really urban-oriented. And last year, I embarked on a research on all the ports of entry to really connect with these common issues with crossing the border. And so my question, in light of the global timing forces, competitive global trade, the North American context in that competition, the rise of Asia, what is CBP doing to reculture its approach to this cross-border dynamic that is so necessary? And when you hear about, what I've been hearing today is a lot focused on trucks, but the people-centered infrastructure or the human element, I think, is missing. And if we really want to integrate in a way that we can compete globally, we need to look at that element and find a way to integrate the culture, the language in places where it meets. And that's in the ports of entry and in those border communities. So again, just the question is how do we now look at the world as one region truly, beginning with CBP, which is often referred to as the gorilla in the room, the 800-pound gorilla. But I see them more as the gorillas being the planning organizations in the regions like the SANDAGs, the Caltrans, the MTSs. You're really the big elephant in the room, and nobody tells you what to do, but it's time to really look at the world as a region. Thank you very much.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Quite often you see the comments about America's pivot to Asia, the pivot, and on and on. You're our large trading partner. You're our neighbors. We need to keep those things in mind. So the technology, the changes that we're making to do all of those things are critical when it comes to sharing information and on and on. But the real importance is also the people-to-people relationships and how you go about that. And probably no one knows that better than you, having spent 30 years at the busiest port that America has. So I think that it's important in our Customs and Border Protection Academy that people understand that relationship and recognize that and appreciate that importance. The first face that people see when they enter the United States is somebody from our organization, and they need to be both welcoming and they need to be both an organization that people know is meant to protect them. One of the most recent surveys of people entering the country internationally ask about what are the levels of importance. The very first level of importance, regardless, and it wasn't about wait times and how long does it take to get in, the very first level of importance was that is Customs and Border Protection doing a job to protect me and to protect my family, depending on what the threat environment might be. Second order of importance was protecting the agricultural crops from disease and others. So we continue to look. I mean, we're very excited about this election for the World Customs Organization. This is 89 countries around the world that voted for a United States government candidate and a person who has spent the vast majority of her career on the southwest border. That opportunity to influence the World Customs Organization, I think, is an incredible testament to the support we had from Mexico, to the support we had from Canada and others. So your point is well taken.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kerlikowske, I think we've run out of time, but I wanted to say thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for being here. You're always welcome back here, and I do hope we see you again soon.
Good. Thank you all very much.
Good to see you. Thank you in person. Yes, absolutely. And please let us know what else we can do to help.
Good. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. How have you been?
Doing well. Thank you so much for making
No, it's good to see you.
We'll now move over to have lunch across the hall, so I invite you to pass through the buffet, and we'll start our lunch program shortly.